Alcatraz Island is located in San Francisco Bay in California. On March 9, 1964, the first occupation of Alcatraz Island took place. After this followed two more occupations, the second one on November 9, 1969, and the third on November 20th, 1969. The third occupation started the full 19-month takeover by the Indians, which is now known as the Alcatraz Takeover. The Alcatraz Takeover was a movement started by a group of Indians that wanted to take back their rightfully owned land. Richard Oakes was the primary leader of the Indians on the island during the occupation. This occupation eventually ended in 1971 when the U.S. government came in and forcefully stopped the movement.
Alcatraz Island had been ignored during the late 1960s until November 20th, 1969. In 1969, 89 Indians announced and occupied the island as a public stunt to address issues concerning Native Americans. That stunt became the Alcatraz Takeover and the longest occupation of a federal facility in Native American history. The American Indian movement began in reaction towards the failing to fulfill treaties, agreements, and injustice treatment towards Native Americans. Alcatraz Takeover was influenced by a 4-hour occupation in 1964 by 4 Sioux Indians when they tried to claim the island with an 1868 treaty that allowed Indians to take any unoccupied land. The 1969 occupation was led by activist Richard Oakes. To announce the occupation, they issued the Alcatraz Proclamation and offered to buy that land off the government. The government denied the request, and 19 months later, President Nixon ordered for federal marshals to escort the remaining Indians off the island.
The Alcatraz Island closed in 1963 and remained closed until Indians occupied the island in 1969. The federal government insisted that Indian people leave the island and later placed a barrier around it that proved to be ineffective. The federal government responded to the occupation by adopting a non-interference policy to avoid conflict. The FBI, Coast Guard, and GSA, or Government Services Administration, were instructed to not interfere or remove the Indians from the island. The federal government wanted it to seem as if negotiations were taking place, but in reality would later elect to end the occupation.
The government later shut off all electrical power to the island, as well as removing the water barge, which provided fresh water to the occupiers. 3 occupiers were arrested, tried, and found guilty of selling copper they removed from buildings. President Nixon gave the order to develop a removal plan to take place when the smallest number of people were on the island to use as little force as possible. On June 10, 1971, armed federal marshals, FBI agents, and Special Forces police swarmed and removed 5 women, 4 children, and 6 unarmed Indian men. After the occupation, the official government policy of termination of Indian tribes was ended, and a policy of Indian self-determination became the official U.S. government policy.
The American Indians want their land back and want to be taken seriously for the first time in this century. With their land, they intend to build a Native American study center, a spiritual center, an ecology center, and an American Indian museum in the island to never let their own culture die. American Indians started gaining a lot of support, and their culture seemed stronger than ever. In December, John Trudell began daily broadcasts from the island. Then, Joseph Morris, a Blackfoot longshoreman, rented space on Pier 40 to transport supplies and people to the island and back and forth. Grace Thorpe, daughter of Jim Thorpe, was one occupier. She helped convince celebrities like Jane Fonda, Anthony Quinn, Marlon Brando, Jonathan Winters, and Dick Gregory to visit the island and support. Rock band Creedence Clearwater Revival donated $15,000 for a boat for reliable transport to Alcatraz. Everything seemed very bright until one day, in January 1970, 13-year-old Yvonne Oakes fell to her death. The Oakes family left Alcatraz, saying they didn't have the heart for it anymore. Some original occupiers also left the island to return to school. By late May, the government had cut off all electrical power and telephone service. In June, a fire destroyed many buildings in the island. Many say it was the United States basically kicking everyone out of the island, threatening their own well-being. Left without power, fresh water, and declining public sympathy and support, occupiers began leaving the island. On June 11, 1971, a large force of government officials removed the last 15 people from Alcatraz.
California knows how to protest. California knows how to protest. In the city of San Francisco, on the island of good old Alcatraz, on the island of Alcatraz, we take it back, we take control.
Now welcome everybody to this wild, wild rock. A rock that's untouchable like AIM. The second occupation hits you right in the chest. Pack a feather for your head, just we getting ready for this protest. We in that protest to take back our land. The protest of 1868, the Sioux Treaty Plan. And we Indians on a mission to regain our land. Lean, mean protesting machine. We've been on this island for 19 months, trying to get back our land from these punks ever since they trying to wipe us out. Now it's 71 and they're dragging us out, declining on demands like the treaty to make sense. It's a national park and it's back in their hands.
California knows how to protest. California knows how to protest. In the city of San Francisco, on the island of good old Alcatraz, on the island of Alcatraz, we take it back, we take control.